Steve Chadwick.
Mr Chair, thank you. Thank you, Mr Chair. I really am not really pleased to take a call on this. We've been waiting for this SOP from Minister Dunn since we last spoke in the House, and I, like the Greens, Kevin Haig, am pretty appalled to see an SOP of this substance come before the House and not go out to the public of New Zealand for consultation. I think that we hoped for better from the Minister responsible for drug use in New Zealand, and we've got something that is too complex, has some implications that the industry is already saying they can see some loopholes in, and are going to fill those loopholes very quickly. We're up against a very intelligent domestic industry here and international industry that will look at what is proposed and will move and will find a way through this. And I think this temporary class drug, or the classification of these substances as a temporary class drug, is just actually as a bit of a delay mechanism until the Minister can really get his head around what is an effective approach to banning, what should happen, to banning these substances. I can see one temporary class drug being classified, sit on a shelf for a year, and quickly the industry will morph to change the ingredients of another substance, and we'll have another temporary class drug that's banned for another year. And we're going to have officials chasing their tails to actually classify these temporary class drugs, put them on the shelf, then pull them out 1 year later to see how they're going to deal with this. And the whole process, I think, is a shambles. And it's a shambles because the Minister, who usually has railed about having a common sense approach to everything, had the perfect mechanism before him, and it wasn't this misuse of drugs amendment bill, it was the Law Commission report. And I don't blame officials in the House here today. They're under instruction by Cabinet, of which Mr Dunn is a member, to fulfil the directions of Cabinet. But I think this government, under John Key's leadership, has shown a pathetic crusade on drugs in this country. It's almost a light bulb issue, actually, and it's going to be laughed at by the industry. It's going to be laughed at ultimately by the manufacturers and by the suppliers and the importers of substances into this country, and it will become a bit of a bête noire for this government in the long-term future. I can't understand for the life of me when the Ministry and the Minister had the Law Commission report, he didn't just breathe through his nose, take the common sense approach and get drafted proper, comprehensive approach to drug minimisation and drug harm in this country. He chose to ignore it. We've now got this misuse of drugs bill, which I think actually penalises the public. We looked at the effect of ephedrine and pseudoephedrine when we were in government, and Minister Dunn knows that. He was in Cabinet when we discussed, for goodness sake, the project of pharmacists in Rotorua that said we're going to remove from the shelves these precursors and put them at the back of the chemist shop. That was a wonderful project. They then let people know who came in to buy more than 2 packets. They faxed round other pharmacies to see if that same person had been in to get substances from their chemist shop and then refused to sell them. That was a sensible approach. It was a sensible approach that was supported by the Medical Association, the Primary Health Organisation and the pharmacists and the District Health Board. And that would have worked if this government had have backed that up by comprehensive new law to the misuse of drugs. However, we got this, and then this long-awaited supplementary order paper from the Minister that I think is not going to work because simply it still doesn't put the right onus of proof on the manufacturers of these drugs. I see one member's had to leave, and she may be lucky enough to go and get her supply of medication without having to go to a pharmacist and without having to go to a doctor for a prescription. I absolutely agree with my colleagues. Mr Chair, I absolutely agree with my colleagues that say this adds another cost of living burden. National may laugh at that. They fail to see that we're developing a society that's grossly inequality-driven. But this issue, for people to have to go to a doctor to get a prescription, to then go to a pharmacist, is ridiculous cost to drive, both a cost burden on the general practitioners and a cost burden on pharmacists. I think it's crazy. I don't think this is a practical approach at all. And this from a government that railed against us with the cannabis inquiry and said that they were going to do something comprehensive when they got into government. Absolutely comprehensive. And with a minister, Mr Dunn, it would be sensible. Well, this isn't sensible. It's not comprehensive. It's a half-hearted attempt to look good about drugs. And we all agree in this House that we've got to do something about the industry suppliers who are very, very clever. Very, very clever. And it's interesting to see today they've already said there's loopholes in this minister's SOP. Gives us some wriggle room and they'll find it. So how silly it is to be reactive in drug law and drug legislation, and we're going to suffer for this until we do enact all of the recommendations of the Law Commission report, not just one. I want to speak very briefly on Ian Lees-Galloway's amendment, which I totally support. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, this clause 4 about the restriction of drug utensils. If the minister really knew how this industry works, these people who use drugs will make their own utensils. They don't have to go and buy them. They know how to make something out of nothing. These are people that use teaspoons, that use bits of wire, that use anything that they've got at their hands. So this restriction, this SOP of Ian Lees-Galloway, we absolutely support. It will do nothing to stop the impact of pseudoephedrine and ephedrine use in this country. We all loathe the drug P. Every member in this House loathes the drug. But we were sincerely looking forward to this government coming up with a solution that wouldn't bring us back into the House. I swear, Mr Speaker, that when there is a change of government, we'll be back and we'll be fixing this, as Labor always is asked to do, fix up the messes of a national government, and we'll do it properly and we'll do it comprehensively, and we would never bring an amendment, an SOP to the House of such substance without taking it out for consultation for the wider public of New Zealand. So I also agree with Ruth Dyson saying that this legislation and the Bill of Rights issue, which Chris Finlayson has commented on, makes a bit of a nonsense again about the government, about the presumption for supply. And I think that's something that I would have thought around the Cabinet table, that members and ministers would have listened to the Attorney-General on the Bill of Rights issues. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Mr Chairman.
The Honourable Peter Dunn.